The ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the soft murmur of Philadelphia's elite celebrating my mother's 55th birthday. I stood near the entrance in a simple black dress from Target, watching my family work the room like the social butterflies they'd always been. Mom glided between guests in her designer gown, accepting congratulations and air kisses from judges, politicians, and business leaders who comprised her carefully curated social circle. "Alexandra, there you are," my sister Rebecca approached, her diamond earrings catching the light. "Mom's been looking for you. Try not to embarrass us tonight, okay?" "I'll do my best," I replied quietly, adjusting the modest pearl necklace that had belonged to my grandmother. Rebecca swept away in her Valentino dress, leaving me standing alone near the wall. The contrast between my appearance and the room's opulence wasn't lost on anyone, especially not my family, who'd made their feelings about my life choices abundantly clear over the past 6 years. To them, I was Alexandra Chin, the family disappointment who'd dropped out of Harvard Law School to pursue what they called computer nonsense. What they didn't know was that their failed daughter had spent those 6 years building quantum leap technologies from a dorm room startup into an AI revolution that was reshaping entire industries. "Alexandra, sweetheart," my mother Patricia appeared at my side, her voice carrying that tone of forced patience she reserved for disappointing situations. "I want you to meet Judge Harrison. Judge, this is my youngest daughter." Judge Harrison extended his hand with polite indifference. "What do you do, my dear?" "I work in technology," I said simply. "How nice. Technical support can be quite stable work." Before I could clarify, Mom was already steering the conversation elsewhere, clearly uncomfortable with my presence in front of her distinguished guests. The evening continued with more of the same. Guest after guest was introduced to my older brother David, the successful surgeon, and Rebecca, the accomplished corporate lawyer. I was either ignored entirely or briefly mentioned as still finding herself in the tech field. "Alexandra," my father Richard approached during cocktail hour, his disappointment evident despite the celebratory atmosphere. "Your mother and I have been talking. This technology phase has gone on long enough." "It's going well, Dad." "Well." He gestured around the opulent ballroom. "Look around, sweetheart. This is what success looks like. David just bought that house in Bryn Mawr. Rebecca made partner at her firm. And you're still living in that tiny apartment working on computers." I nodded quietly, not mentioning that the tiny apartment was actually a penthouse I owned outright, paid for with the profits from my company's early IPO. The irony wasn't lost on me. While my family measured success in social status and material possessions, I'd been quietly revolutionizing artificial intelligence. Quantum Leap's neural processing algorithms had solved problems that had stumped tech giants for decades. Our AI systems were being implemented by Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and research institutions worldwide. "You know," Uncle Charles joined our conversation, swirling his expensive whiskey, "my firm is always looking for entry-level IT support. The pay isn't amazing, but it's steady work." "Thank you for thinking of me," I replied diplomatically. "The thing about technology," David added, having overheard from nearby, "is that it's mostly a young person's game. You need to think about long-term stability." "I am thinking long-term." "Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're still playing with computers while the rest of us have built real careers." The words stung, but I maintained my composure. They had no idea that their computer-playing daughter held 17 patents in machine learning and had turned down acquisition offers exceeding $3 billion. As dinner was announced, I found myself seated at table 12, far from the head table where my parents held court with the evening's most important guests. My tablemates were polite but distant, clearly unsure why someone dressed so modestly was included in such an exclusive gathering. "Are you in Rebecca's law firm?" asked Mrs. Wellington, a prominent society matron. "No, I work independently." "How interesting. Consulting can be quite challenging these days." I smiled and nodded, not bothering to explain that my consulting involved licensing AI technology that would generate over $2 billion in revenue this year alone. During the main course, Mom stood to address the room. Her speech was gracious and warm, thanking friends and family for celebrating with her. She spoke glowingly about David's medical achievements and Rebecca's legal career, her pride evident in every word. "My children have always made me proud," she concluded, her eyes deliberately avoiding my table. They've built meaningful careers and contributed to our community in significant ways. The omission was subtle but unmistakable. In a room of 200 guests, my own mother had managed to praise her children while pretending I didn't exist. After dinner, as guests mingled during the dessert reception, I overheard more conversations that reinforced my family's perception of my life. "Poor Patricia," I heard Aunt Margaret whisper to another woman. "2 out of 3 isn't bad, I suppose. At least David and Rebecca turned out well." "What about the youngest?" her companion asked. "Still trying to make it in computers. Very sad, really. Such a bright girl, but she's wasted all that potential." I excused myself and stepped onto the hotel's terrace, needing fresh air and a moment away from the constant subtle rejections. The Philadelphia skyline stretched before me, and I could see the building where Quantum Leap's headquarters occupied 15 floors of premium office space. Tomorrow I had a board meeting to discuss our expansion into autonomous vehicle AI, a project that would revolutionize transportation safety. Next week, I was keynoting a technology conference where CEOs from around the world would gather to learn about the innovations my team had developed. But tonight I was just Alexandra, the family embarrassment who'd chosen the wrong path. "There you are," Rebecca's voice interrupted my thoughts. She stepped onto the terrace, followed by Mom and several other family members. "Alexandra, we need to have a serious conversation," Mom began, her voice taking on the intervention tone I'd heard too many times before. "About what?" "About your future. About this technology obsession that's consuming your life." David joined the group, his expression serious. "Alex, we're worried about you. You're 31 years old with no real career progression, no family, no stability." "I have plenty of stability." "Do you?" Mom challenged. "You're still single, still living alone, still working on these computer projects that clearly aren't paying off." "They're paying off fine." "Then show us," Rebecca said bluntly. "Show us your bank account. Show us your investment portfolio. Show us anything that proves you're not just barely scraping by." "I don't need to prove anything to you." "Actually, you do," Mom said, her voice rising with frustration. "Because your choices reflect on this entire family." "How do my choices reflect on you?" "When people ask about my children, I can proudly talk about David's surgical practice and Rebecca's law career. But you? What am I supposed to say about you?" The words hit like a physical blow. "I don't know, Mom. What would you like to say?" "I'd like to say that all my children are successful. But I can't say that when one of them is still playing with computers like a teenager." "Mom, please." "No, Alexandra. I've been patient for 6 years. 6 years of watching you waste your Harvard education on this technology fantasy." The group had grown larger, with more family members and even some guests gathering to witness what was clearly meant to be a family intervention. "You're an embarrassment to this family," Mom declared, her voice carrying across the terrace. "An absolute embarrassment." The words hung in the night air like a slap. I felt tears threatening but refused to let them fall in front of this audience. "Patricia," Aunt Margaret said gently, "perhaps this isn't the right time." "When is the right time?" Mom interrupted. "When is the right time to tell your daughter that she's throwing her life away?" I was about to respond when Rebecca suddenly gasped, her attention caught by something behind me. "Oh my God." Everyone turned to see what had captured her attention. Through the terrace's glass doors, we could see into the hotel's lobby, where a newsstand displayed the latest magazines. Rebecca pointed with a trembling finger at the prominent magazine rack. Is that Alexandra on the cover of Forbes?" The group pressed closer to the windows for a better view. There, unmistakably, was my photograph on the cover of Forbes magazine, with the headline, "Tech's Youngest Billionaire. How Alexandra Chen's AI Revolution Changed Everything." "That can't be right," David said, his voice barely audible. Rebecca pulled out her phone and quickly searched for the Forbes article. Her face went white as she read the screen. "Alexandra Chen, 31, CEO of Quantum Leap Technologies, has become the youngest self-made billionaire in the artificial intelligence sector," she read aloud, her voice shaking. "Her revolutionary neural processing algorithms have disrupted industries from healthcare to autonomous vehicles, generating over $2 billion in annual revenue." The silence on the terrace was deafening. Chen's company, valued at $4.7 billion, holds patents that are considered the gold standard in machine learning, Rebecca continued reading. Despite offers exceeding $3 billion for acquisition, Chin has maintained independence, focusing on innovations that she believes will benefit humanity. Mom's face had gone completely pale. Alexandra. The Harvard dropout turned tech mogul operates from a state-of-the-art facility in Philadelphia, Rebecca kept reading, employing over 800 researchers and engineers in what industry experts call the most advanced AI development center in the world. Is this real? David asked, his surgeon's composure completely shattered. I pulled out my phone and showed them the Forbes notification I'd received earlier that day. The article went live this morning. I was planning to mention it, but the conversation never seemed to come up. You're actually a billionaire? Mom whispered. According to Forbes, yes. Though the company valuation fluctuates with market conditions. Aunt Margaret found her voice first. Alexandra, sweetheart, why didn't you tell us? Tell you what? That I was building a company? I tried. 6 years ago when I first started Quantum Leap, I called to share my excitement about our first breakthrough. You told me to stop wasting time on computer games and finish law school. But this says you employ 800 people, David said, still staring at Rebecca's phone. 837 actually. We just hired a new team of quantum computing specialists from MIT. And the revenue? $2 billion? That's annual revenue. This quarter alone we've generated $650 million. Mom sank into a nearby chair, her elaborate birthday celebration forgotten. I called you an embarrassment. You did. But you're on the cover of Forbes magazine. Yes. As a billionaire. Apparently so. Rebecca was still reading from her phone. It says here that your AI systems are used by NASA, the Department of Defense, and major hospitals worldwide. Among others, yes. And that you've revolutionized autonomous vehicle safety systems? Our neural networks have reduced accident rates by 93% in test environments. David looked around at the gathering of family and friends, all of whom were staring at me with expressions ranging from shock to embarrassment to awe. Alexandra, he said slowly, I owe you an enormous apology. We all do, Mom said, tears beginning to flow down her cheeks. Oh my God, sweetheart, what have we done? You've been honest about your perceptions, I replied calmly. You saw someone who appeared unsuccessful and treated them accordingly. But why didn't you correct us? Why didn't you show us the company, the success? Because every conversation became a lecture about my poor choices. It was easier to let you believe what you wanted while I focused on the work. Judge Harrison, who had somehow joined the crowd on the terrace, stepped forward. Miss Chin, I owe you an apology as well. I completely misjudged your accomplishments. Thank you, Judge. Mom stood up, her makeup streaked with tears. Can you ever forgive us? There's nothing to forgive, Mom. You couldn't see my vision because I hadn't built it yet. But now that it exists, I hope you'll support it. How can we support you? By understanding that success comes in many forms. By recognizing that innovation requires taking risks that don't always look like traditional career paths. Rebecca put her arm around me. Alex, I'm so proud of you. And so sorry we didn't see what you were building. Thank you, Rebecca. Dad finally spoke, his voice thick with emotion. Sweetheart, can you forgive a foolish old man who completely underestimated his daughter? Of course, Dad. As the family embraced me on the terrace, I noticed that several other party guests had gathered inside, reading the Forbes article on their phones and talking excitedly about the revelation. Mom wiped her eyes and looked at me with newfound respect. What happens now? Now we go back to your birthday party and celebrate. This is your night, Mom. But this Forbes cover, your company, will still be there tomorrow. Tonight is about celebrating you and 25 years of family. As we returned to the ballroom, the atmosphere had completely changed. Guests who had barely acknowledged me earlier now approached with genuine interest and respect. The conversation shifted from polite dismissal to eager questions about artificial intelligence and the future of technology. But the moment that mattered most came at midnight when Mom took the microphone for a final toast. I want to correct something I said earlier, she announced to the room. I said that my children have always made me proud. That was incomplete. Tonight, I learned that all 3 of my children have achieved remarkable success, even when I was too blind to see it. She looked directly at me. To Alexandra, who built something extraordinary while we weren't paying attention. We're sorry we missed the journey, but we're grateful to be part of celebrating the destination. The applause was thunderous. As I stood there surrounded by family and friends who finally understood what I'd accomplished, I realized something important. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving your family wrong about your failure. Sometimes it's proving them wrong about what success looks like. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they'll love you enough to admit they were wrong and celebrate your success rather than questioning how you achieved it.